Cinemajaw is sponsored by Overcast, an independent podcast app that embraces the open world of podcasting instead of locking it down. No exclusives, no premium content, no paywalls. Just a great podcast app for everyone. Get it for free in the App Store. And we thank them for their support. You're listening to Cinemajaw, the greatest movies podcast ever, recorded on location from our respective homes in Chicago. My name is Matt K, and with me is
Rod the Movie Guy, and sitting inside the fish tank is none other than Filmy and Phil.
Hello, how we doing, guys?
Is this Phil's first episode back?
No,
Matt.
I
was back last week.
All right, see, it's all a blur, guys.
You wouldn't remember. Jawheads don't realize how much coughing I had to cut out, but I was here last week. I'm surprised Matt forgot.
You know what's staggering about that, to show you how bad Matt's memory has gotten, and I give him a hard time on this all the time, we recorded all together. All four of us were in the room for the first time, and he's asking if this is the first time Phil's back. I have no clue.
That's what threw me off, because the ones together, it's like I didn't see the screen, you know?
Oh, yeah, right. I gotcha. Well, this week on Cinemajaw, Matt, we are talking Stillwater and our favorite Matt Damon performances.
Yeah, speaking of forgettable things, no, I'm kidding. I actually love Matt Damon. I'm pretty excited to talk about his performances.
Yeah, and a very exciting returning guest. Matt, we had this guest on way early in the Cinemajaw first year, maybe our second year, and then I think he has not been on since. Can we throw that in the fish tank? The last appearance of one Elliott Serrano.
Yeah, Elliott's back. He is Chicago's geek in charge, Chicago's Clark Kent. He's written comic books. He's got a new podcast about James Bond. Can't wait to talk to Elliott.
Yeah, he at one time there was a little thing called C2E2. I believe it's going to come back, Matt. And
it's coming back this December, yes.
We'll talk to Elliott about that. But Elliott was so high up on the ranks here in Chicago when it came to geekdom that when they wanted to do a panel with Stan Lee, who do they get to moderate that panel? Elliott Serrano.
I know. That's, among all the many other cool things I've seen Elliott do, that is one of my favorites.
Yes. Besides talking to Elliott, we got some more things going on, don't we, Phil?
Yes, it is a brand new month. It's August already. That's mind-blowing. I'm shocked that we are this late into the year. But what that does mean, aside from the passage of time, is that we have a brand new theme. So we're going to go over, we'll review that a little bit later.
And we have reviews of Stillwater and Jungle Cruise.
Yes. Jungle Cruise, new Disney movie. Can't wait to talk about that. And Stillwater. We saw that last week. Finally get to chat about it, Matt.
I'm excited.
In honor of the new Disney movie Jungle Cruise, Matt, I thought this would be a good time for you to take Elliott on in Jungle Cruise movie trivia. Think of movies either with jungle or cruise in the title.
Okay, not Tom Cruise.
Well, could be. Always can throw something in there, Matt.
Some curveballs.
I don't have to hit you over the head and explain all my little gimmicks with Jungle Cruise, right?
No, you don't. Please don't, in fact.
Yeah. All right. Before we bring Elliott on, Phil said it's August and we have a new theme. Matt, you want to reveal who we will be celebrating?
Yes, the centaur himself, Adam Driver, one of the legends from Star Wars, one of my favorite actors of the day. Just a titan of cinema.
We were looking at the release dates in August. He has a big movie coming out called Annette. It's a musical with him and Marianne Cotillard.
Oh, wow.
Had complete mixed reactions at the Cannes Film Festival. Half the audience got up and left. The other half that didn't leave gave him something like a 15-minute standing ovation. Completely divided the crowd. So should be exciting. Jawheads, it comes out in limited release August 6th. It's bought out by Amazon Prime for streaming, and it will be on Prime on August 20th. So
cool. We'll look out for that.
Should be interesting to see.
Yeah.
So let's start this jaw out with an Adam Driver fact.
Yes, Adam Driver is a really fascinating guy. And this is the first time that I'm honestly a little annoyed by one of the facts that we've had about our guests or our monthly theme topics. Apparently, Adam Driver refuses to watch any of his performances on screen, regardless of what project it is or who it's for, how important it is. The one time that he has made an exception to this was to attend the premiere of The Force Awakens. Obviously, he plays Kylo Ren in that. But it's mind-boggling how much it took for this man to watch a film he was in. According to Driver, the fact that he was masked through most of it helped a great deal. But, in his own words, the experience was still so disconcerting that he nearly threw up in the movie theaters. It's shocking that he's so talented. You'd think that he would want to watch that to get better. It's very strange to me. Again, I'm a little irritated that he's not I think there's a weird spectrum here where I guess he pulls it off. He does well enough.
But I
think
hear
self-reflection is important.
You do hear that a lot of performers don't like to, watch themselves. I think they, in the moment they can perform, but then when they go back and they watch it, they're just very critical of themselves and hate seeing themselves on the big screen.
You know what? I'm with Phil. That's super irritating. I'm a big Adam Driver fan. Don't get me wrong, but dude, get over yourself. I mean, you should self-reflect, watch the tape back, learn from your mistakes, and try to make your craft better. Come on, dude. That's a bit much. I mean, sometimes my wife gives me crap about listening to my own podcast, but you got to do it. You got to hear how you sound in order to get better at it, right?
Exactly, man. That's honestly what I was thinking about too. I was like, if I don't listen to this show and edit it, then it's hard for me to have a frame of reference. Again, he pulls it off. I've never seen Adam Driver in something that he's sucked at, so I guess
good point.
Good for him. But
I agree.
At the same time, I was like, what the hell?
It's working. Whatever he's doing, it's working.
Wow. Adam Driver month off to a smashing success here on Cinemajaw, I would say.
I agree, Rye. Totally.
Let's keep it rolling here, Matt. Without further ado, we bring in our guest, Elliott Serrano. As you mentioned, he is Mr. Geek when it comes to all things geek culture here in Chicago. He is the guy you go to. It has been many years since he has been on Cinemajaw. So, Elliott, welcome back finally to Cinemajaw.
It is great seeing you guys. I don't know how often you hear this, but I've missed you.
We still see you from time to time at certain film screenings. You'll pop up.
Yeah, but you guys act like you don't even know me because you're Cinemajaw guys. You got to get your special seating so you can sit together and talk like Siskel and Ebert. And I'm over in the corner.
I'll say this. We go to all the screenings, and you don't go to all the comic book screenings, but that's when I actually know it's a very important one, is when I see Elliott in the audience. I'm like, oh, yeah, Elliott's here for a Star Wars one, or Elliott's here for one of the big comic book ones, something like that. And then it's like, yeah, okay, this makes sense. It's big.
Or I'm not busy that evening. It's funny. I got, I'm sure you guys already got the invite too, for a Suicide Squad.
Yes.
I want to see it. I'd love to see it. I can't make it. I've seen James Gunn's take on a DC property, which I'm sure is going to be incredible. And it's going to be fun. Probably going to be the best DC movie we'll see yet. And I can't make it. So it's no reflection on James Gunn. I'm definitely going to catch it on, HBO Max, though, a couple days later.
For sure. Yeah. Have you been back to the theater yet since post-pandemic? No, not yet.
I have not. Everything I've seen so far. I mean, I did the HBO Max package. So when I saw, what were all the great things? Godzilla vs. Kong, which I love.
Mortal Kombat,
not so much. I'm looking forward to the Matrix 4, which they still do we even know what it's called?
Throw it in the fish tank. I don't know what Matrix 4 is called, if it has a little title after the end of it. I'm not sure.
The
only know
subtitle.
who's in it. That's it. And of course, Suicide Squad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's exciting that HBO is putting them all out on HBO and in the theater at the same time. It's pretty cool.
It's fun. It's cool. I mean, to me, I am looking forward to finally going back to a movie theater, but it's going to take something really special for me to do that, because I think a lot of folks forget before we went into lockdown, before this whole thing with being together in public places was an issue. We forget that there was a time when we got on each other's nerves in many cases in that movie theater, right?
Oh, sure. Especially Ryan's nerves.
Yes.
I mean, right? There were movie theater chains that were trying to come up with accommodations for people who would insist on texting during the movie.
Are you kidding me? I didn't hear about that. No, that's insane.
Remember, Alamo Drafthouse said, "No way, no how." You're doing stuff like that during a movie screening. We kick you out. You're out. You're gone. But movie theater managers were like, "Well, that's all part of the experience, and people want to be able to do that while they're there." And I'm like, "No, I did not pay all this money to sit in a darkened room, to have the communal experience of seeing a film with a bunch of folks, while, if they insist on talking and texting during the whole thing." But it's going to have to be, like I said, it's going to have to be something special, something really good to get me into a theater. And I swear to Jeebus, anybody pulls out a phone and texts, they're going to get that slapped out of their hands.
Oh, well, yeah, as it should be.
I wonder if the new James Bond movie might be special enough to get you into theater. And I say that because I understand, Elliott, you have a new James Bond podcast entitled Shaken, Not Heard.
Yes, Shaken, Not Heard, a James Bond fancast, or AKA the James Bond podcast that no one listens to. So,
yes.
It's something that was done. It started off kind of as an experiment at first. I and a buddy of mine, Dave Pinto, he's my co-host. Dave is a huge Bond fanatic, aficionado. He's read all the books. Of course, he's seen all the movies. He's deeply entrenched in the Bond ephemera. He knows it all. Whereas I, like most folks, come from it as a fan of Bond through the comic books, the video games. I might have picked up a book here or there, maybe not necessarily the Ian Fleming books, the spin-offs that came afterwards. And so what we decided to do is get together and go through every Bond film in order, starting with Dr. No through No Time to Die. And I told Dave, hey, we have great conversations about this. Let's see if we can record them, do it in front of an audience, see if they find these conversations as entertaining, as enlightening as I find them. And over time, I think we've gotten a nice chemistry going. And we've gotten through all the Connery films. We took a quick break in the middle. Instead of going into Roger Moore right away, we did do On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So George Lazenby was not forgotten.
You got to get Lazenby in there. Yeah,
he was not forgotten. Don't worry. But we did take a break before going into more by reviewing You Only Move Twice, that classic Simpsons episode featuring Hank Scorpio. Remember Hank Scorpio?
Sure.
My favorite Simpsons episode, because I would work for Hank Scorpio. He was such a great boss. He needs to write a book, 10 Successful Habits as written by Hank Scorpio.
I'd read that, yeah. So you guys are also including some of the Bond adjacent kind of things.
Yeah, we thought, because enough of the conversation tends to veer into that. With our last episode, we discussed Live and Let Die, started off the Moore era, and we couldn't stop ourselves from getting into what were the best themes, because, like, say, Live and Let Die is my favorite Bond theme. Our guest on the show, Mark Primiano, his favorite is from The Spy Who Loved Me. Nobody Does It Better.
That was a big hit, yeah.
That's a big hit. So we'll go into that. The next episode coming up is going to be about the comic books that Dynamite Entertainment has released. I'm going to be looking at Kill Chain and Hammerhead, as written by Andy Diggle. If you haven't read these comic books, they're really good. Dynamite has put some top-notch talent on these James Bond comics. And then after that, we'll be jumping back into more with The Man with the Golden Gun. Our guest appearance is a co-host of Caffeinated Comics, John Clark. So he'll be coming on when that episode premieres. So if you want to listen to the show, just go to facebook.com/shaken not heard. All the episodes are there on the page. They've all been archived. You get to see us talking to each other.
Nice video. Cool.
Thing. Yeah. And you'll forgive us. The early episodes are a little rough for the technical
It's just
side.
like any podcast. Yeah.
We're still figuring things out. It's the funny I watch. Okay, so you guys were talking about how Adam Driver doesn't like looking at himself in movies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like that when it comes to watching myself in these podcasts. Because if you look at the very first episode when we talk about Dr. No, I'm sitting in my family room in front of my fireplace with the Bond Blu-ray collection over my shoulder, but I didn't have my ring light set up. So as the evening progressed, the light kept getting darker and darker and darker. I started fading into the black.
If you guys ever get into an argument on the podcast that you just can't settle, you've got to settle your arguments with a game of GoldenEye for Nintendo 64, slaps only.
Okay.
Yep.
Put you on the spot here, Elliot. Who's your favorite Bond? Which actor?
Well, my favorite Bond has always been Roger Moore. I mean, he was the one I grew up with, and my favorite Bond movie is Moonraker, which some people are going to laugh at. But here's the interesting thing, because first, after going back and seeing all the Connery films, which I had not seen since I was a wee bairn, I saw those movies like on television with my dad, when it was the ABC movie of the week. That's when I saw them. I never saw them in the theaters. My dad loved Sean Connery. I never got it. But as I'm watching them now, I'm like, oh, okay, now I see why everyone was so mad, so crazy about Sean Connery. He's really good in that role.
He was great.
I'm like, no, wait till we get to Roger Moore, and that's when stuff's going to start happening. Oh, boy, Live and Let Die. Whew. That was a rough one. Man, there are all these great stunts and set pieces that I remember from when I was a kid, when I first saw it. And I did see Live and Let Die in the theater. I remember seeing it in the theater. But I was really young, and I only remembered all the great stunts and set pieces. I don't remember the really bad dialogue and the bad fashion that James Bond was wearing at that time. The dude wears a blue jean jacket and a white tank top. Seriously?
I think the Moore era took a little time to settle in, because that's when it turned far more campy, and they had to just lean into that campiness in order for it to really start to I don't know, like mature, if you will.
If you listen to the Blu-ray, the commentary that Sir Roger Moore does on his films, he talks a lot about that. He talks a lot about how the screenwriters would write the jokes for him, because he was constantly joking on the set. He was constantly playing pranks on everybody and all that. Plus, if you know Roger Moore, if you've seen his other work, he's really more of a comedic actor.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
So I could get that. So you're right. It does take a while for the seriousness of Bond to settle on him. And then, yes, he's campy, but then you start buying that he's a spy. Mm-hmm. I didn't buy it so much in Live and Let Die, which still is my favorite theme. But
talk about a good theme, right?
Yeah. So again, for the jawheads that want to check out the podcast, where should we send them, Elliot?
Facebook.com/shaken not heard. That's where you can hear it now. The audio version will be premiering hopefully within the next few weeks on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
Great.
Awesome.
And in the meantime, we will have the link in the show notes to the Facebook.
Sweet. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, you heard we were celebrating Adam Driver this month. You're a Star Wars fan. The backdrop on your Zoom call, I believe, here is the Millennium Falcon. So putting you on the spot, what is the best Star Wars movie that Adam Driver appears in?
Oh, boy. That he appears in? Can we count the Lego special?
No, live action only.
Hey, why not?
Live action.
All right.
I don't think he's in that one. Kylo Ren's in it. I mean, The Force Awakens, for the most part, I I'm learning to come to terms with The Last Jedi. If I didn't have just this personal thing about The Last Jedi, which is essentially I can't handle the fact that Luke dies at the end.
It was tough, man. That was tough really for all of us. Yeah.
Then I would have said that The Last Jedi is probably his best one because that's when you really saw his character come together. But that would be it. But that's not even his best movie. So.
No. What's his best movie, Adam Driver?
Oh, Marriage Story.
Yeah. It's a great one, huh?
He reminds me of me. If I were a tall dude, strapping former Marine, who could punch through walls.
Yeah, I see it now. I actually see it now. Good stuff. All right. Well, Elliott is sitting in on this entire jaw. He has his top Matt Damon picks, as we all do. And we're talking Matt Damon, Matt, because we're talking Stillwater.
That's right, Ryan. What if a Southern roughneck, with all the cultural affectations thereof, traveled to Marseille, France, to visit his daughter in jail and stumbled upon some information that might exonerate her of her crime? What if I told you that Matt Damon plays the Southern American in question and Abigail Little Miss Sunshine Breslin is his imprisoned daughter? Have I got your attention? Good, because you'll need it for the next 2 hours and 20 minutes in Stillwater. But is your attention well spent here? Ryan and I headed to France to find out.
The day you left for Marseille, I drove to the airport. I went to the gift shop and I saw this necklace. It was gold, said Stillwater on it. I thought it'd be a little piece of home to take with you.
Some folks are born made to wear the flag.
You're in Marseille for vacation?
Yeah, I visited my daughter.
You're the father of the girl, the American student?
Yes, ma'am.
The synopsis of Stillwater reads thusly. An oil worker in Stillwater, Oklahoma, named Bill Baker, played by Damon, learns that his estranged daughter, Allison Breslin, while studying for a year in Marseille, has been falsely arrested, pending trial, and charged with murdering her friend and partner, Lena. He travels there to visit her in prison and discovers that she has all but exhausted her legal options. He moves permanently to France and struggles to clear her name, contending with the language barrier, cultural differences, and a complex and unfamiliar legal system based on the French penal code. He's aided by a French woman named Virginia, played by Camille Cotton, and her 8-year-old daughter, Maya, played by newcomer Lilu Sayuvad. As the pressure mounts, he must decide just how far he's willing to go. The story of Stillwater, everyone's going to know that it's basically the story of Amanda Knox. It kind of jumps out at you. But honestly, it's less a story about murder and more a story about culture, relationships, and decision-making. I mentioned at the top that this is a longer movie, but unlike so many bloated drama in recent times, this film earns its extra runtime. And while I can't exactly tell you that it's action-packed, each and every moment are essential to establishing the relationships that make the ending and third act work. And oh, the ending. I've seen that it has polarized the critic community, but I love an ending like this. For me, it was so poetic. It was like landing a 747 on a dime, Ryan. Perhaps the best ending since No Country for Old Men. The lead performances were stellar, particularly Damon, who undertakes a rare transformation and plays an unlikely character for him. This is perhaps Matt Damon's best performance, and I would easily put it up against Good Will Hunting or The Talented Mr. Ripley. Both Camille Cotton and newcomer Lilu are fantastic in this. If anything, Abigail Breslin is the weak link here, and I think that is really saying something. Summing up, Stillwater is a long film with a lot to say. It's a dynamic drama with an amazing ending. I will not be surprised if Damon gets an Oscar nod for this, but perhaps its positioning in the summer may keep it under too many radars. I say you should see it.
Yeah, I'm right with you there, Matt. It was shocking because normally when we see Matt Damon in Europe, It means car chases, fight scenes, and amnesia. But this time, he's staying at the Best Western. Did you even know that they had a Best Western in France? I had no idea. This is like a learning center. I'm like, what the hell's going on?
Not only did
Best Western in Marseille?
I didn't know that, and I didn't pick up on that little detail while I was watching the movie, dude. Well done.
Yeah, unbelievable. And why you would stay there. But okay, you're right. Great performance by Matt Damon. One of his best for sure. It's so out of character for him to play this kind of role. He looks like Josh Brolin, like a tough guy, muted performance, not the warm, lovable Matt Damon characters. Even when Matt Damon plays evil, and we're going to get to this when we talk about his best performances, even when he's playing evil, the thing I think we like about him so much is that he can be so deceiving as a nice guy.
Right. He's got charisma.
Disguise.
Yeah.
Right.
Even in an evil role. That's well said. Well said.
Right. And here it's just, it's this like completely compacted performance where he constantly says, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And that's about it. He doesn't like to linger on any sentences or any thoughts at great length at all.
He's kind of like Billy Bob Thornton from Sling Blade meets Hank Hill from King of the Hill in this movie.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Right.
And you commented about the runtime. I'm on here almost, it seems like weekly, in somewhere part of the movies we're reviewing. I say a little long, should have been 15 minutes shorter, or something along those lines. This is 2 hours and 20 minutes, and it deserves the 2 hours and 20 minutes. You need it to be to feel this connection that he has with Maya, the young French daughter that he
right.
Starts up like befriends or becomes a father figure to. You need to have that length with these characters for that emotional weight at the end. And it covers so many topics here. You're right. I mean, the murder, that's almost takes a back seat to so many other issues.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, totally, dude. There's like the fish out of water stuff because like he's this redneck in Marseille, France, which is like, next to Paris, probably one of the most cultured cities in the world. And he's just the ugly American. They play some of that for laughs. I don't know. There's a lot here. There's a lot to take away. And man, I don't want to overstate this. In fact, I don't think it's possible. The ending was so awesome. I just loved it because they don't spoon feed you. It does not insult your intelligence. They think, I think the filmmaker said, you guys are big boys, figure it out for yourself, big boys and girls. Figure this one out.
The only negatives I wrote down here just to bring up was I did think the way that he meets the French woman was way too convenient. I for a smart as film as this is, that seemed like so lazy that she's just at the other hotel room, right next door because her apartment's getting worked on. And that relationship just struck up too easy. I didn't care for that. And the only other, and this is a minor one, the only other part was there's a moment in the film where he is trying to track down an individual that his daughter, who's in jail, believes had something to do with this murder. And they take to Instagram. And they at one point are in a cafe, and it's like he doesn't know Instagram, and neither do the two adults really. If this was really going to come down to it, and you may have a lead to get your daughter out of jail, you would find somebody younger or knows how to work Instagram. I mean, they're like trying to print pictures. It was very bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of forgave that. In fact, I didn't really even think about it while we were watching the movie. That's a minor complaint here.
But overall, I also strongly recommend Stillwater. Matt, was there a jaw-dropping moment here for you?
Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm just going to call this jaw-dropping moment the kidnapping. There's a turn in the movie where something happens that you will find shocking, and it's almost devastating in a way. So how about you, Ray?
I went with the first time we actually see Matt Damon on screen. He's so bulky and big. It doesn't look like Matt Damon, and he's got like tattoos on his arm, and he's cleaning up after like a tornado. He's like a husky dude all of a sudden. What the hell happened? I was shocked.
Yeah, like if he was sitting next to you on the train, you wouldn't say, "Oh my God, that's Matt Damon." You'd be like, "Oh, there's another dude,"
Yeah, and he probably smells because he's all bulky, and he just had that look. Like it looked like Matt Damon smelled in this movie.
Okay. I'll take your word for it on that one.
You got a movie poster quote?
Yeah, I'm going back to my review to say Stillwater is like a 747 landing on a dime. I just like that sentence. What do you got?
I went with don't sit still, get out and see it.
Ah, nicely done. How many Jaws you giving this?
3.5 Jaws, Matt. 3.5 Jaws for Stillwater.
I'm going the full 4 Jaws.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's up there with Pig for my favorite movies of the year.
You're throwing 4 stars out like they're going out of business.
That's not true. We're starting to see some good movies, man. I was really excited to see a really high quality movie in the theater. This was great.
Elliott, you hear our review. Is this something that piques your interest now, Stillwater?
I just want to know if his accent in Stillwater is different from the one he did in Ford versus Ferrari.
Rye, you saw both.
I did. Slightly. That's all I would say. He doesn't really have an accent in this movie that I would say is completely notable. It really isn't an Oklahoma accent. I'll say that. He's very muted though, so it's very forgiving because he doesn't go on to any like long sentences in the film.
Yeah, there's no monologues or anything like that. He's very like almost monosyllabic. He's like, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. That's why I kind of said he was like Carl from Sling Blade, you know?
So we wanted to rank our top 3 favorite Matt Damon performances. Elliott, we'll let you start. Was this easy for you to come up with your top 3?
Well, kind of. I mean, my favorite might seem pedestrian compared to what I know you guys are going to throw out, because I know you've seen way more Matt Damon movies than I have. And your tastes are way more sophisticated than that.
Please.
Okay, so number 3, I'm going to say Ford versus Ferrari. He was. I enjoyed him a lot in there. I ended up enjoying that movie a lot more than I expected because of the humor that he brought to it, and you know, from you talking about Stillwater here, and you see a movie like Ford versus Ferrari. Matt Damon is kind of entering that phase in his career where he's not like the fresh young guy anymore. You know, he's starting to, you know, weather down a little bit, and there's more of a maturity to his performance. And as you said, he's like pulling back, not, you know, pushing so hard, doing things in a role. So I was blown away by his performance in Ford versus Ferrari. I was like, holy crap, he's really good. I really enjoyed it. So.
Yep. And it really helped that Christian Bale, who stars opposite of him, is also excellent. So both the leads are so damn entertaining that, and the story is one that you want to cheer for. It's like an underdog story. It's got a lot going for it.
Absolutely.
Good pick at number 3, Matt.
All right. So Elliott was talking about pedestrian picks. Mine are the ones you will expect, I think, for the most part. The number 3 really is the wild card here. And I'm going with The Martian. And here's why. The Martian is a Matt Damon movie. It's practically him alone for like, I don't know, a good 2/3 of the movie. It's just Matt Damon. So he carries that movie quite literally. And he does it very, very well. I love The Martian. It's a movie I've seen a couple of times and I could easily go back to. I think it's rewatchable. So there you go. My number 3, The Martian. How about you, Rye?
My number 3 pick, and also I wanted to comment on the pedestrian picks. I think when you're talking about Matt Damon, we're all going to have somewhat common picks. I have a few honorable mentions that I think are a little bit, you know, more esoteric a little bit, but
he
for
does
the
a
most
lot of
part.
He does a lot of cameos, or as Rye likes to call them, small roles.
Small roles. But for the most part, when you're talking his big ones and his notable ones, they're usually blockbusters, to be honest. So my number 3 is, again, playing sort of an evil Matt Damon here, the 2006 portrayal of Colin Sullivan in The Departed. And it was large cast. You know, you got Leo starring on one end, and on the other end, you got Matt Damon. And he plays like a bad guy very effectively. And again, it's this chameleon performance where he's 2 different people. And I know this is going to come up on another pick of ours where his motivations are hidden for most of the part of the movie, and he does it really well. There's something about him that I think we want to almost see him get away with it in these movies, and that works.
I hated him in that movie. I straight up hated him. I so wanted him to get his comeuppance.
You hated the character. You didn't hate his performance.
No, I'm saying that's the performance. Normally, I think Matt Damon's a great guy. He's a fun guy. But yeah, he was so good in that. I totally wanted to see his character get his comeuppance at, when it ultimately did.
So that was my number 3, The Departed. What do you got sitting at 2 there, Elliot?
Number 2, I'm going to go way pedestrian on this one, but this is the one where let's be honest. Not only did it put Matt Damon in a new genre, but it started a whole new genre or a whole type of action film. That would be The Bourne Identity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's really good in that. You never would have thought Matt Damon could pull off action, and the way that film is put together and cut. I was like Paul Rudd in 40-Year-Old Virgin. Wow, Matt Damon's really bringing it here. He's talking. They're watching The Bourne Identity in the background,
right,
at the tech store, and that was what I was thinking. Holy crap, he's really bringing it, and trying to create what would be hopefully America's James Bond. They're still trying to do that. They've tried doing it with Jason Bourne. They tried doing it with Jack Ryan. I know Cruise is trying to do that with Ethan Hunt in the Mission Impossible movies.
That's interesting. I wonder which of those have gotten the closest.
Jason Bourne, I think, is the closest, but they're not. They still have a ways to go to get to approach it.
I agree. I would actually go Ethan Hunt's probably closest, in my opinion.
If you take if Tom Cruise doesn't play Ethan Hunt, do you go see that movie?
No, but he does.
No,
I'm saying if Matt Damon doesn't play Jason Bourne, do you go see that movie? We did.
Exactly.
We all saw Jeremy Renner, and it was a piece of junk.
Exactly.
Right.
But you will see James Bond if somebody else plays a character.
Yeah, that's a rare thing. It's really rare. But yeah,
I will say with Bourne, you made this point, Elliot, was that Matt Damon didn't seem like he could pull off an action star. And I remember skipping this in the theater. I didn't see it till it was out on DVD, and completely blew me away. And then I ended up becoming like the biggest Jason Bourne fan. By the time we got to the third film, The Ultimatum, I was there like opening day. Like it was like my movie of the summer. By that time, I was all on board. And to think, 5 years earlier, I was like, I'm never going to see Matt Damon in an action role. And boy, proved me wrong.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they've been somewhat diminishing. But moving along here to my number 2, this is where I put in the talented Mr. Ripley. And I don't know, this isn't another evil character. He was kind of like a very, very dark Frank Abagnale, that Leo played in Catch Me If You Can. Sort of a con man, serial killer. And man, it contains one of my favorite murders on screen when he kills Philip Seymour Hoffman. I talk about it a lot on this podcast, so I'm not going to belabor it, but go rewatch that scene on YouTube. They both just kind of chew up the scenery. Another one where I just didn't think Matt Damon had that kind of depth. I thought Good Will Hunting was a fluke, and he was going to be relegated to like Kevin Smith movies for the rest of his career. Not that there's anything wrong with Kevin Smith movies. I love them, but they're not as serious for the most part as talented Mr. Ripley, which was like a straight up drama thriller. It was way better than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, I love me some talented Mr. Ripley. In all honesty, at number 2, I had Jason Bourne also. Big Bourne fan. I'm going to sub one in here, and this is his performance opposite the dude in the Coen brothers remake of True Grit.
Oh, yeah. Good pick, Rye.
And again, I think it comes down to expectations. I thought, what? Matt Damon and Jeff Bridges in a Western, and I'm going to believe this. I'm going to believe the dude, in a bathrobe on a horse, and Matt Damon from Good Will Hunting on a horse. I'm going to believe this. And wow, come on. These guys pulled it off and pulled it off really well. If you haven't seen, and then I went back and I watched the original True Grit. Fantastic. But I love the Coen brothers version of it as well. It's one of those rare remakes that both are fine to see if you're out there and you haven't seen either one. Watch them both.
Yeah, I actually think the modern one is probably the better of the two. I know that's blasphemy to some. I prefer it.
Elliot, you're number one, buddy.
Well, I'll be a tad pedestrian, but this one is the reason I enjoyed it. It might not necessarily be Matt Damon's best performance, but it's the one most memorable to me because of the subject matter, and that this is the movie that made me a Matt Damon fan. I didn't care for him before. When I saw him in this, I liked him, and you already referenced it, Matt.
Dogma. Really? Wow.
Yes.
Holy cow.
When he plays the angel of death, Loki, there's that scene in the very beginning where he's talking to a nun and convincing her that God doesn't exist. And then Ben Affleck, as I forgot I'll throw that into the fishbowl, Phil. Tell me, I forgot the name of the character that Ben Affleck played, the angel's name. Says, "You stood in the presence of God. You know him," or her. Yeah. How can you do that? How can you convince someone God doesn't exist? And he's just all, well, that's the way it is, you know? And it's that character just spoke to me on so many levels, in so many ways. And while it's not his best performance, I know, because it's him under Kevin Smith's direction, and Kevin Smith really isn't a great actor's director. He doesn't get the best performances out of his actors. Even though if you listen to the Blu-ray commentary, Kevin Smith can't stop gushing about how great Matt Damon is, and yet harping on how bad Ben Affleck is. It's fun, it's good, it's whimsical, it's some great lines, and again, it spoke to me. So I give Dogma my number one spot.
Yeah, wow. I was poo-pooing Kevin Smith earlier, but make no mistake, I think he's a great director in his genre, and Dogma is a very underrated film.
Kevin Smith's he's a great writer first. Writes great dialogue. You know me, I love me some snappy dialogue. I put Kevin Smith, Quentin Tarantino, Aaron Sorkin, all these writer-director types who can write prose that their characters speak that don't seem like prose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's very natural. Yeah, but delivering it sincerely, having it really come out, like that big fight that happens in Chasing Amy between Ben Affleck and his lesbian lover. Again, I forget. I feel bad.
Chris Lee? Was that?
No, the actress is, I want to say Joey Lawrence, but it's not Joey Lawrence.
No.
But
throw in the fish tank. I can't remember her name.
I'm throwing in the fish tank too. The thing is that that fight is so pivotal to that movie. They sounded like they were reading dialogue. They sounded like they were reading a script. And a good director would have gotten a better performance out of them to make it seem more sincere. So there's some cases when if you're doing it for comedy, you don't have to push so hard. The sincerity doesn't have to be so heavy. But if you want to make me believe that, you have a couple breaking up over irreconcilable differences over things that anybody can go through, then I need to be convinced by the performances, which I wasn't. Mind you, Red State is probably Kevin Smith's best writing and directing job, because the acting in that was great across the board.
And Damon's not in that, right?
No, he's not in that. I don't mean to sidetrack into Kevin Smith land, but that one is really
yeah. We'll save that for our Kevin Smith special.
We'll have you back for some Smith talk.
Elliot had Dogma at number one. Matt, what do you have?
I am going with probably the most pedestrian pick of all, but really it's Matt Damon's best. It's the one he won the Oscar for, Good Will Hunting.
Yes, but to clarify, he did not win for acting. Right, he won for writing.
Fine, whatever. He still won an Oscar for this movie. Is that not a true statement, Ryan?
Right, but the way you said it makes it sound like he won for acting. Because we're talking about acting.
We should clarify. You're right. Good Will Hunting, though, I think getting to see him perform along with Robin Williams, their relationship feels so real and so tender. And I think those are the best scenes in the movie, even more than his scenes with like Minnie Driver. That love, I almost don't buy as much as his love with Robin Williams' character. Fantastic movie. It holds up to this day. It's a classic, you know. I love Good Will Hunting. That's my number one.
Nice pick. Had to come up.
Had to.
In all honesty, my number one was The Talented Mr. Ripley. Huge fan. So I'm going to sub one in here, and it's between two. I really like him. It's a smaller role because it's a big ensemble, but I love the movie Contagion, where he's married to Gwyneth Paltrow, and it's Gwyneth Paltrow who dies first. I mean, that scene when she dies and the doctor tells him, your wife's dead, and he's like, okay, great, but I need to talk to my wife really quick. Like, he just can't even fathom it. It just doesn't even register.
Can't process. Yeah.
Right. Love that scene, but it's such a small role. So I'm going to go with one that I just enjoy. It's a guilty pleasure. But I think we probably all enjoy it. I think Elliott's a gambler. I can tell from maybe afar here. I'm going with his performance in Rounders.
Oh yeah, dude. Good call.
Ed Norton.
And John Malkovich. Flash the pot.
Yes. He was on such a roll at this point. Rounders was right in the middle of like Matt Damon's rising star, and he just played it. Guy who wants to get away from that life, wants to go clean. We see this story all the time, just in different facets, and he gets pulled back in by his friend Worm, played by Ed Norton, and they end up going around, hustling games, and finally he gets his chance at Vegas.
Can I just make one observation about Damon, and then we can wrap this whole thing up? He plays a lot of supporting roles. Even when he's the star, he's almost a supporting character a lot of the time. Like, he's up against a Leo, he's up against even a Ben Affleck, or he's up against what film were we just talking about?
Yeah, Ed Norton and Rounders.
Ed Norton, there you go. Boom. I mean, he's always got somebody whose star might just be a little higher than his in the picture with him. I don't know if those are conscious choices by him or if that's just the way it's played out, but it's an interesting observation, I think. I wonder why that is.
Well, Jawheads, if we missed your favorite Matt Damon performance and you have Twitter pulled up, shoot us a tweet at Cinemajaw, or you can email us feedback@cinemajaw.com. When we come back, we have a review of Jungle Cruise plus Jungle Cruise trivia, Matt versus Elliott. Stick with us. When we talk about the movie Marriage Story, people love to bring up the epic fight scene as the emotional moment that overwhelmed them. But for me, it might just be the scene where Adam Driver's character gets up to sing Being Alive. At the start, he's not taking it so serious, but the emotion swells into something very special. Here is Adam Driver singing Being Alive.
Blow out the candles, Robert, and make a wish. Want something. Want something. Somebody hold me too close. Somebody hurt me too deep. Somebody sit in my chair and ruin my sleep and make me aware of being alive, being alive. Somebody need me too much. Somebody know me too well. Somebody pull me up short and put me through hell and give me support for being alive. Make me alive. Make me alive.
Jawheads, I want you to do me a favor. Pull your phone out of your pocket and go to your YouTube app. Search for the Cinemajaw channel and hit subscribe. Really, please do it right now. This will do two things. One, it helps us reach more people. We want to spread the good word about film, and you clicking subscribe really helps us do that. And two, it costs you nothing. That's right. Subscribing to Cinemajaw on YouTube is fun and it's free. Think of it as a donation that doesn't even cost you anything. Even if you just listen to the podcast and never really watch the videos, you subscribing on YouTube helps us make the podcast better too. But please check out a few videos while you're there. We think they're pretty good. So right now, while you're listening, before you forget, take your phone out. It shouldn't even interrupt the show. And go to YouTube, search Cinemajaw, and hit subscribe. And thank you so much.
And we are back on Cinemajaw, hanging out with Elliott Serrano. We talked about his Bond podcast, but Elliott has been through numerous things. And one of the things I actually mentioned at the top of the show is that Elliott would do these panels. He would MC events at C2E2. And I mentioned he got to do one with Stan Lee. My question for you, Elliott, is who's sort of the biggest feather in your cap? The one where you're like, wow, I can't believe I got to MC that. Was it Stan Lee, or was there someone even more shocking?
I got to say right now, Stan Lee has to be the peak of the mountain right now. Before Stan Lee, it was Anne Rice.
Oh, wow. That's also really cool.
Because she had it was one of the larger rooms at the McCormick Center, and that place was packed, and I was nervous as hell. And I had been really researching her and what she was doing. And I even saw some of the other interviews that she had done on television. Most recently, the one she had been on the Colbert Report and sat down with Stephen Colbert. And even before the panel started, I want to say, Miss Rice, this is so great. Just want you to know, I saw your interview on the Colbert Report. That's kind of what I'm going for. I want us to have fun with this. And she said, oh, that's great. Okay. And then she got up there with me, and she was loose and funny, and people were laughing and cheering and clapping. And as the panel finished and we walked off, she said to me, Elliott, I had more fun with you than I did with Stephen Colbert. Wow, and I was on cloud 9 at that point.
Yeah.
I was like, that is the top. That is, as far as how I felt working with the guests. Because mind you, I have crashed and burned on some panels too, where some guests were not really happy with what I.
All right. Well, you got to tell us that story. Tell us a good crash and burn.
Oh man, the 24 panel.
Okay.
I had 3 of the guys from 24 on. This was when 24 came back for that 6-episode mini, and none of them were invited to be back on the show. None of them were returning, and they would not answer any questions about 24. I'm like, oh, okay, these guys are killing me here. So at one point I go, okay, what do you guys want to talk about? Say, tell me. And I'm not going to name names. All I know is that one of the actors said, oh, great research you did there. And I said, guys, this is for you. This is your panel. If you don't want to talk about this, you can talk about anything you want. And then one of the other actors finally saw where I was going and started talking about pizza ovens. Like he was starting a pizza oven business. And I thought that was fun. And then the crowd was starting to enjoy it. And I knew it wasn't just me, because the actor who was giving me a hard time also turned on the audience. And they were
real heel
either. So
just having a bad day up there, huh?
Just having a bad day. And I was like, guys, I said, what are you working on now? Plug your projects. Talk about it. You don't want to talk about 24? Tell us what else is going on. So
real briefly, I think for people who haven't been listening to Cinemajaw since year 1, I wanted to go over some of your bio, because you've done you've worked with some of my favorite characters in pop culture, including Ash from The Evil Dead and Grumpy Cat. Really, how do you top those two? So anything new coming down the pipe pop culturally or comic book wise?
Comic book wise, well, I mean, I haven't had anything in the works for a bit, because COVID sent a lot of stuff to a screeching halt. There was a lot of concerns about the comic book industry suffering, comic shops closing because people just couldn't go to comic shops. And a lot of titles got canceled. A lot of folks lost jobs over the pandemic. So I took a step back and said, you know what, I do have a day job that kind of pays my bills. I don't have to write comic books. But after my last series, Homies, that I did for Dynamite Comics ended, I started pitching for Star Wars Adventures at IDW. And the pitches went as far as the editor telling me, we're passing these on to Lucasfilm. They're the licensor. We need to hear what they say. And that was before the pandemic. So
time to follow up on that.
Yeah, it's time to follow up. The problem is that there's been so much turnover at IDW. The same editors I've dealt with them are no longer there now.
Well, just tell them that those people already said yes. So
doesn't always work that way.
It's greenlit.
Yeah. I would love to do more comics, but the honest truth is there's nothing right now outside of Star Wars and really Indiana Jones that I would love to write. I mean, once I wrote Ash Williams for Army of Darkness, which was he's my top three. My top three characters that I've always wanted to write: Luke Skywalker, Indiana Jones, Ash Williams. It was those three of movie characters, mind you, licensed.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's I have an Indiana Jones pitch in my back pocket. It's never been done before. I've read all the indie stories. Every time they talk about what the next indie movie is going to be about, I'm wondering, is this my MacGuffin? They haven't done it yet. So, but from what I understand, indie's even tougher to pitch than Star Wars. Then beyond that, I have been wanting to write Superman for the longest time. But those are all sewn up. The big names are working on those.
Yeah. Well, keep us in the loop, man. When the next comic is coming down the pipe, let us know.
Oh,
we'll have you back on.
Definitely.
All right.
Matt, before we get to trivia and before we get to our Jungle Cruise review, let's open up that fish tank.
Wait a moment! It's fish! Isn't it?
DC! Wake up! Wake up! No, Pat, it's a giant glass bowl. Hey, there's some fish folk.
Who's coming with me besides Flipper? Here.
That's a Sicilian message. It means Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Yes, thank you guys so much for letting me out. It's we got a lot of questions in here. Our first one, this one just to make everyone feel old. When was the last time Elliott was on? This is way back. We haven't had Elliott on since episode 46, the best time travel movies, over a decade ago. That was October of 2010.
Holy
crap, I feel old.
I know.
Phil,
That's crazy to think about.
Phil, were you even allowed to go to R-rated movies in 2010?
No. I didn't even graduate high school in 2010.
Holy cow.
I think my sisters may have just graduated in 2010, but that could be a little bit off. I think they could have still been in.
Just blowing my mind that 2010 was long ago.
Yeah. You're telling me. What was the subtitle of The Matrix 4? As far as I can tell, its current official name, what people are calling it, is the untitled fourth Matrix film. So we don't even know if it's going to have the Matrix in it. Yeah,
it should be Matrix 4 404 error.
Well done.
I got what is the name of Ben Affleck's character in Dogma? He was the fallen angel Bartleby.
Bartleby, that's right.
And then another Ben Affleck one, who played Ben Affleck's counterpart in Chasing Amy. That one was Joey Lauren Adams. So three first names. Also from Coneheads, Dazed and Confused, and many, many more.
I miss her, man. I was a fan of her. I hope she comes back. Whatever happened to her?
I know. Really fell off.
The last time I saw her in the last Jay and Silent Bob movie.
All right. She's still in the Askew-universe.
Yeah, it's like she makes a cameo. It's not like she has a recurring role. I mean, it's just he shows up because Kevin Smith brought everybody back. I mean, he's doing Clerks 3 now, so
because why not?
Wow. Phil, was that everything?
That's all the questions that we had, but I did want to bring one thing up. You guys know me. I listen to NPR, so I have moral superiority, and I hear stuff faster than a lot of people. Did you guys hear this thing that I thought would be cool to talk about? Scarlett Johansson is apparently suing Disney. Do you guys know anything about this?
I saw this also on all the headlines before we started doing Jaw. I'm glad you brought this up, Phil. We got two comic book guys here, Elliott and Matt, that are big into the Marvel world. My take on this, just coming from the movie standpoint, we sort of would touch on this, Matt, when things were going to streaming. And, it made mainly like Christopher Nolan back when he was, really sticking to his guns and saying he wanted tenant out in the theaters, and back and forth they would go. And I did bring up the point that a lot of contracts, a lot of people, like when HBO said they were going to put everything on HBO, they did have to go and just give tons of money to a lot of these directors and actors who had back end agreements because it was not going to make as much money now in the box office. Those are the facts. And that seems to be the case here. She's claiming that because it was also released on Disney Plus here, she could be, in her estimate, shorted out somewhere between $40 and $50 million on this deal. I would sue also, to be honest. I mean, yeah, she's making money, but if you're promised something and you sign a contract that you could make upwards of 50 million and then someone changes that, then it's her right, I think, to sue. What do you guys feel?
I would say I agree. I mean, she was a producer on that film as well. These contracts, studios expect you to hold to those contracts. They're not going to let you come back and renegotiate once they get your name on the dotted line. And from what I understand, the fact that they released it on streaming in addition to the theaters, as opposed to, let's say, putting it into theaters for, say, a month or something like they did with Quiet Place 2, and then put it on streaming, afterwards. Affecting the box office, yes, affecting her back-end participation, costing her, as you said, between $50 million. And let's be honest, being kind of shady on Disney's part, because a lot of theater owners were complaining, they don't get a share of the streaming. And Disney's like, oh, well, we don't know how much it made on our service. They can be very clandestine about how much they actually earned by charging folks $30 a pop on Disney Plus.
Matt?
I'll play devil's advocate a little bit, but I do think you're absolutely right. If she had something in her contract that said that there was supposed to be a back end based on box office receipts, and then Disney went ahead and put it on streaming early and that wasn't in the contract, then she deserves to be paid out on that. Agree, 100%. But I think it's just a brave new world, and nobody knows exactly how things are going to shake out with the pandemic. So Disney hedged its bets. I don't think that they were doing anything wrong, but they need to compensate the talent in this case, their partner in a Scarlett Johansson. So it's kind of mostly, I agree with you guys, but I don't think that Disney was trying to do something nefarious or double dip. They just wanted to assure that the movie got as many eyeballs and they got as many dollars as possible, which is the name of the game.
Yeah. I think the only thing really that went wrong is they should have been upfront with her before it came to this, before they released and they realized, hey, we're still dealing with this pandemic. Hey, can we go back and make a fair deal here where we can give you X amount of dollars and we're also going to put it on Disney Plus and everybody's happy so that we don't get to this point, Agree. Because it looks bad for her. It almost looks like, poor little rich girl biting the hand that feeds her kind of thing. I think it could be taken that way. And that's not fair. Yeah. That's not fair. Yeah.
I don't look at it that way. I mean, Mark Wahlberg is constantly renegotiating things and no one ever calls him bad. So
no, I agree with you too. I'm just saying I think that it could be perceived that way. Whether or not that's fair, I think she's going to get some of that backlash.
People do hate hearing though when somebody's already being paid. I think her upfront was $20 million on the deal. That somebody's suing for even more money. I hear you, but I think she's entitled to it.
I do think it's crazy. I feel like a lot of the American justice system isn't always about what's right and wrong, but who makes the most money. And I think it's a very ballsy move to sue Disney at all. I guess if you're going to do it, you may as well be super rich and have money not be an object as well. I think that's the only way that you can fight back against some of these things, but I think it'll be interesting. And if it does help, like Elliott had said, none of these companies do care about the contracts that they write in terms of like if you as the performer does anything. And if this helps the other people who can't afford stuff, I do think that who can't afford to get into a legal battle like this with somebody as occasionally tyrannical as Disney, I think that could be very, very important. I think definitely worth watching.
The subtext, which I guess we probably all already knew, is that there is going to be no more Black Widow in the MCU, or at least no more ScarJo.
It's a good time to sue when you're already made your last Marvel film. All right, now's a good time.
Yeah.
But by the way, occasionally tyrannical is the name of my new supervillain soap opera.
Good stuff. All right, was that everything now, Phil?
That's all we got in here. I got no other news stories this week.
All right, get back in that fish tank.
You betcha.
Another Disney amusement park ride turned into a summer blockbuster film. This time, instead of Johnny Depp, we get Emily Blunt and Dwayne Johnson. Can Jungle Cruise make a splash the way Pirates of the Caribbean did? Matt Kay and I jumped on board the steamboat for a quest that promised answers and a fun time.
So what are you doing out here?
There is a legend in the jungles of the Amazon of a tree that heals all. It could change the world, but if it gets into the wrong hands, it could awaken a great evil. I believe that the legend is real,
Which it's not.
and I'm going to find it.
Which you won't.
And when I do, just imagine the lives that could be saved.
I've been looking for this tree longer than anybody. I've tracked the legend to every village, every island. Nothing. You're searching for something that can't be found.
But you've never had the key.
The opening of the Jungle Cruise sets the scene perfectly. We meet Dr. Lily Houghton, played by Emily Blunt, who sneaks around some archaeologists looking for an artifact that will eventually guide her to the Tree of Life located deep within a dangerous jungle. This action set piece sees her jumping on ladders that move around a room, knocking things down to make noise for a distraction, all the while her brother gives a boring speech to distract another group. Once this artifact is in hand, the real adventure begins. The brother and sister team up with Frank Wolf, skipper of the steamboat, played by Dwayne Johnson. In need of money and having an interest in the Tree of Life as well, he is eager to help. The tree petals are known as tears of the moon and have healing power. So chasing them is an ambitious German aristocrat played by Jesse Plemons who wants to find the same tree and petals. More on Plemons in a bit, but he is flat out hilarious here. As the boat makes its way down the river, we are treated to a fun, bloated family adventure film. Dwayne Johnson's character uses pun jokes and tongue-in-cheek answers to supply some easy laughs. The set pieces are well choreographed and easy to follow. The CGI is a little questionable and a little too much. I didn't think we needed all of it. There's a nice reveal midway through that kept my interest in the overall story. I walked off the cruise saying I got exactly what I thought I would. A fun, safe, bloated ride. Blunt and Johnson are both enjoyable, but it was Plemons that steals the show. Matt, would you recommend people get on this cruise?
Yes, I would recommend people go on this. But here's the thing. Like, if you've gone on the ride in Disney World, then you know it's kind of the redheaded stepchild of Disney World rides. Why is it even still there? I guess this movie justifies its existence. I see Phil making a face. Don't get me wrong. It's a beloved classic, but if we're being honest, it's also pretty cheesy with outdated animatronics, and it really survives on the personality and punsmanship of the skippers that take people on the tour. Famously, John Lasseter was also a steamboat skipper on the Jungle Cruise. That's a little trivia I wonder if Phil knew. It's fun. It's stupid. I will say a minor critique here. Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt have no chemistry together.
Oh, bite your
whatsoever.
tongue.
Were the sparks flying off of your screen, Ryan? Because they sure weren't off of mine.
Well, I wouldn't say sparks, but I wouldn't say they were like dull together.
Yeah,
they had
were.
fun. No, they had fun.
It was
yes,
like rubbing
they were,
two pieces of wet wood together.
Oh, no.
It's not going to start a fire.
No. They were okay. They
didn't
worked.
believe they even liked
forced.
each other.
No, it felt forced, but it was fun. It was believable.
Well, fine, I guess. I mean, like if they were just adventuring partners and there was a platonic friendship, cool. But they wedge in a love story where these two are getting romantically involved. And I didn't believe it for a second. I didn't even think they really liked each other in that way at all. Okay.
I will say that I've never had seen, and I actually, we're going to talk about our favorite Dwayne Johnson movie. I went through his filmography. I've missed a lot of them, but I've never seen Dwayne Johnson as like the love interest in anything. He's usually, the tough guy that saves the day, but to see him as in this way where he's almost like Michael Douglas in Romancing the Stone, right? Is sort of the role he's trying to play, the guy who's out in the jungle and that the woman falls in love with. He doesn't, I don't know. It was different to see him in that light.
I agree. Perhaps miscast. Plus the whole skipper thing. Like nobody falls in love with the steamboat skipper. I mean, the stupid suspenders and the cap. Like it's just not a good look. He wasn't that suave Indiana Jones or Michael Douglas in Romancing the Stone type, but he could have been. I think that they kind of messed up a little bit with the love story. Just leave it out. It was confusing. It didn't work. Get rid of it. Otherwise, the movie's pretty good. I mean, I had fun with the adventures.
Right. Well, part of my critique on the film would be that we've seen so many adventure films. It's tough to do them in new ways to make them very exciting. But at the same time, we've seen lots and lots of movies. You got a chance to actually watch this with your family. Did your kids watch this?
Yeah. The whole family.
And did they like it?
My mom and dad too.
Okay. So as a family film, did they watch this and say, you could tell that everybody was enjoying it?
I got to be honest, dude. We all got up and were like, that's pretty good.
Oh, okay. I was wondering because I was in a screening with just, a handful of critics. And sometimes you don't get the idea of like, well, I came out thinking to myself.
Middle-aged men love this movie.
Yeah.
Right.
I came out thinking, well, I bet you kids are going to love it because I was enjoying it. But obviously I've seen enough of these adventure films and it's Disney. They're not going to screw it up. But it's by no means
safe
smash either. Right. It's a safe play.
There's not anything that's scary or compelling enough to grab the attention of my 7-year-old. And there wasn't anything dramatic or romantic enough to grab the attention of my 13-year-old. And my mom, who's just an over-the-top Dwayne Johnson fan, like she was like, when are we watching the movie, Matt? When are we watching the movie? She walked away kind of saying meh too, which is saying something from a huge rock fan like her. So overall, I think this is a passing movie. It's a fun getaway. If you're looking for something to do, fine, go see it, bring the fam, but it's not the next it's not the next domino in The Rock's career or Emily Blunt.
Okay. Paul Giamatti, small role, minor role, fun, but Jesse Plemons, you got to have a comment on Jesse Plemons. He was fantastic as the German. He was great, but not nearly menacing enough. It was just too campy, too fun. Yeah, it was played for campy and laughs more than menacing for sure.
Yeah, I had fun with the German accent. It was really over the top good, like the Kaiser references. It was fun.
Yeah, jaw-dropping moment.
The jaw-dropping moment is the reveal, which you hinted at when we sort of find out what The Rock's character's origin is. That was pretty cool. I got to say, like, I didn't see that coming, and I was like, oh, that was a little different.
Real quick, before we move on, would you call that a reveal? Or since you didn't see it coming...
It was a twist.
See, Matt? There is a difference. All of a sudden, Matt's saying reveal now.
It was more of a twist. They fooled us.
So leading into this moment, right before it, Dwayne Johnson's character has a fall, and he falls down a very long way and hits things along the way. That was pretty graphic, and it was like shocking to see how far he went. And I'll just leave it there because I don't want to get into spoiler territory. But that moment was like, oh my God, where's this movie going?
Yeah, there was some fun cartoon violence in this that was kind of cool to watch.
Movie poster quote.
Jungle Cruise doesn't rock the boat. It's a safe family comedy.
Not bad. I was going to go with Stuck Between a Rock and a Quiet Place.
Oh, well done, sir.
But that was given to me. Someone gave me that at the screening.
Oh, you didn't have to. Oh, really? Okay.
So kudos. But my movie poster quote actually was, might not have all you can eat buffets, but this cruise is worth a ride.
How many Jaws?
I actually want 3 Jaws.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. 3 Jaws.
Dude, somebody's got to take your
Am I too high? Should I been at 2.5? Should I have been at 2.5?
I think 2.5 is high, frankly. Yeah, but 2.5. I don't see how you give this movie 3 Jaws, man. It's just, because of Plemons. That's it. Plemons gets
fun.
a whole extra star.
Yeah, I loved Plemons for sure.
This is a bland, safe, middle of the road action family adventure, and I'm giving it 2 Jaws. And I even think that might be a tad generous, but the charisma of Blunt and The Rock carry this over the finish line. It's just based on their charisma.
Jawheads, if you see Jungle Cruise, agree, disagree, just want to comment, shoot us a tweet at Cinemajaw or an email, feedback@cinemajaw.com. I had a question here, guys. I'll start with you, Elliott. This is a family adventure film. What makes a great family adventure film in your eyes, Elliott?
Well, for me, it's kind of first the plot. I mean, it's got to be kind of a smart plot so that you're not sitting there and picking it apart. Because the thing that gets me with a lot of family films, I'm saying this with the air quotes, is that when the screenwriter is thinking, well, this is for kids. Kids aren't that bright. We'll just throw some stuff in there. The kids aren't going to question how this happened and how that happened. But kids are smart. Kids are really smart. And they're going to be the ones who are going to find those plot holes, and they're going to be the ones that say that made no sense why they did that. So the film's got to be smart. It can't be condescending. You can't think I'm just going to write a string of set pieces and coincidences that occur because I don't expect my child audience to question it.
Matt?
It's interesting. I was listening to Elliott and I was thinking the family adventure film that we all sort of hold up as the gold standard is the Goonies, right? So everything has to compare to the Goonies. And I think what makes the Goonies so fun and special is the contraptions, the clever traps and things like that. It has to be told with a sense of danger. I wonder if that's even more important than the plot, to have these fun and funny traps and danger situations and action set pieces that sort of build to a crescendo. I think that's what makes it a fun family adventure movie.
And I also think, likable family, figuratively or like in the Goonies sense, and seeing that family or that group evolve. And we just saw it with Mitchell's versus the Machines earlier this year,
sure,
where you like the entire family, the father and daughter don't see eye to eye. And through this adventure, they change and grow and, learn something about each other. You need that in there as well.
Right. They learn that sloth loves chunk.
So I mentioned this earlier, Dwayne Johnson. I've missed a lot of his movies. Really quick, do you guys have a favorite Dwayne Johnson movie? How about it, Elliott?
My favorite. It's still my favorite to this day. And it's one of his most underrated, unappreciated ones, The Rundown.
Yeah. 100%, dude.
He plays a bounty hunter who is that whole bit. He's a bounty hunter, one last job, wants to take the money that he's saved over time so he can open a restaurant. And it's The Rock playing, this really sensitive role. And it's just, if you focus on him, it's great. You have Christopher Walken as your baddie. You have this sequence, this action sequence that happens in the third act that made me think of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
With the whip.
Yeah. And the walls closing in on him.
Yep.
It's just a fun movie. And I want to say that the director who also did other movies like The Kingdom, really another really underrated director, so underrated that I should remember his name, but I'm not. But it's just a good movie. It's The Rock. This was really The Rock's first big film, if I remember correctly.
That he was starring in. That was a big Rock vehicle, if you will.
Yeah. So I want to say it's a shame that he has no chemistry with Emily Blunt, because I've had a crush on Emily Blunt since The Adjustment Bureau. But that's something else.
Well, you can keep your hope alive. That's the good news. Dwayne Johnson didn't come in and sweep her away,
Well, I still have John Krasinski to deal with. So.
Yeah,
that's true. But at least you don't have John Krasinski and The Rock,
Matt, your favorite?
Listen, I love The Rundown. By the way, I think it's Peter Berg was
Peter Berg, yes.
Director. And I'm not that smart. I'll be honest. I looked it up. Moana is my favorite because I think it was another one that nobody was expecting The Rock to do well in. It was kind of like when we heard that Robin Williams was going to be the genie. We were all like, but can he sing? And turns out, yeah, The Rock can sing. He did a fine job on that movie. And I think the character of Maui was perfect for him in so many ways. He embodied the character. He brought life to it. He imbued this sense of fun and adventure and, great character. Kind of overshot where he should have been in that role.
Well, I caught up with The Rundown probably less than 8 months ago. First time I ever saw it. I'm a fan.
It's good.
Didn't like it as enthusiastically there as Elliott just described, but I was a fan. My favorite is one of his most recent ones, and that's the Jumanji film. And again, what we're all talking about, I think, comes down to expectations. It was like, why are they making another Jumanji? We don't need this. And they put Dwayne Johnson in it, and it's like, all right, I'll see it, and we go, and I'm laughing, having a hoot and holler of a time. Like, all right, I get it. I get why everybody likes The Rock and Dwayne Johnson. You put him in the right role at the right time in a family movie like that, and he's a smash. I see why your mom loves him, Matt.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that may not be why my mom loves him, but there's that too, right? I mean, he's got a certain appeal in so many ways. I think The Rock can take a crappy movie like Rampage, right? Where nobody had any expectations for films like that. And you know what? With The Rock, it's not terrible. It's definitely tolerable. Maybe
I was joking about Skyscraper, but really it is that exact scenario. I watched it, and I remember thinking, God, I don't know why I'm even watching this. And at the end, it's like, not all that bad with The Rock.
Yeah, he can save a doomed project, but I wish he would get that vehicle, his Indiana Jones, his Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of like franchise that he can latch onto, because I think he's a star that hasn't completely crested yet, even though he's huge.
It was supposed to be the Scorpion King, and that never happened.
Yeah, that CG was terrible.
We're going to end this conversation with a silly question here. We got Disney making movies on amusement park rides. So I want to ask you, if you could make a movie about an amusement park ride, which ride would you pick?
I'm of two minds about this. The first one would be, I would get Aaron Sorkin, hire him to do Hall of Presidents, a trip through time as we meet all these different presidents to find and rescue the soul of America. And then if we don't do that, then I get the guys who created Saw and have them do It's a Small World, where you're essentially tortured by hearing that song for 90 minutes.
Matt?
It's funny. I was thinking like It's a Small World, right? And not for the same reason. Yes, that song is such a terrible earworm, and we have to listen to it like 500 times when you go on the ride. But you know what? I was thinking of it from a sincere point of view, with like the state of the world and how everything is so polarized and things are terrible in the world. Maybe It's a Small World after all can create some unity and some togetherness and some diversity. You know, these things I think are sorely lacking, and that's a good thing. I mean, the ride would be a good movie in the long run. Good message.
Gotcha. I struggled with this one.
Yeah, it's hard.
I really did. I didn't know what to go with. I had whitewater rafting, and I was trying to think, who I would cast, the director. And then I asked a friend, and he said The Giant Drop. And I thought, yes, you get the biggest cast in Hollywood. You get The Rock in there. You get, Charlize Theron. And then we just watch them all drop in slow motion, and you just get close-ups of their face and their reaction as they go down the giant drop. And then you walk out of the theater and you comment on who made the silliest face.
Yeah, why not?
I'd watch that.
All right, are we ready to play some trivia here? In honor of Jungle Cruise, we are playing that Jungle Cruise movie trivia. Think of movies with jungle and cruise in them. Elliott, you're our guest. You get to choose if you want to go first. Let Matt go first. There are steals, and if you get hung up on any questions, you get one Rescue Me Ryan. I have clues to all the questions, and they do start off easy, Elliott.
I'll let Matt go first.
Question number 1 over to Matt K. Matt, name the 1991 Spike Lee film that starred Sam Jackson, Wesley Snipes, Halle Berry, and saw Wesley Snipes play a lawyer who dates his white secretary.
Is that Jungle Fever?
That is Jungle Fever. 1-0, Matt K. Question 2 over to Elliott. Name the Harry Potter star who appeared in the 2017 film Jungle, about an adventurer who goes on a tour of a jungle when things turn evil.
Rupert Grint?
Oh, why would he go Rupert Grint? Has he been in anything?
Don't tell me it was I'm sorry, that's Matt now, right?
Yeah. So really, who've you got here? I guess there's a lot of people in Harry Potter, so it could be one of the minor characters. But of the 3 big characters, would it have been a oh God, now I'm blanking on their names. I'm gonna guess it's Emma Watson, Hermione.
Oh my God. Also incorrect. We were looking for Harry Potter himself. Daniel Radcliffe starred in the movie Jungle. 1-0, Matt K. Question 3 over to him. Matt, name the 1997 movie that takes place on a ship and starred Sandra Bullock, Willem Dafoe, and Jason Patrick.
Sandra Bullock. What year? You said a year.
1997.
How do you steal?
Wow.
If he misses
I
it.
get it.
If he misses it.
I'm guessing this is a cruise question here, so I'm going to say singles cruise. I have no.
Incorrect. Elliott, a chance for a steal and to tie it
That
up.
was a good guess. That was really good. Speed 2, cruise control.
Yes, it was Speed 2, cruise control. First time a trivia question has popped up on Speed 2. I can't believe it. It's 1-1, all tied up now, and question 4 is over to Elliott. Elliott, name the actress who has starred in the 4th Pirates of the Caribbean, Blow, and Sahara.
Oh man, I should know this because I remember Sahara.
And remember, we're playing Jungle Cruise movie trivia.
Penelope Cruz.
There you go. 2-1, Elliott. He takes the lead. Question 5 over to Matt. Matt, name the actor who played Michael Cromwell, a New York broker who must travel to an Amazon jungle to get a divorce from his estranged wife. And while there, learns he has a son who he brings back to New York. Who starred in this masterpiece?
All right. Tom Cruise.
That is incorrect. Elliott, name the actor who played Michael Cromwell, a New York broker who goes to the Amazon jungle in the movie Jungle to Jungle.
Oh, Jungle to Jungle. Oh, crap. Man.
He brings back a son he didn't know he had from the jungle to New York.
Yeah, I keep wanting to say James Caan because of
Oof.
It's Sinbad or something. This is a terrible movie.
Yeah, it was a terrible one. We're looking for Tim Allen. Tim Allen in Jungle to Jungle.
Okay.
Still 2-1. Question 6 over to Elliott. This is a tough one, Elliott. How many George of the Jungle films did Brendan Fraser make?
1.
That is correct.
There were sequels, but he wasn't in any of them. Yeah.
Right. That is correct. There were sequels, but he was only in 1. 3-1, Elliott. Question 7 over to Matt K. Matt, you need both these to tie it.
Okay.
Nick Jonas played Alex, a teenager stuck in the video game in Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. What actor portrays Alex in the real life when they come out of the video game?
Oh, Colin Hanks.
Wow. Didn't think you were going to get that one. 3-2. Last question of the game. Elliott wins it on a walk-off here or gives Matt a chance to tie. Elliott, here it is. And it's a tough one. It's a real tough one. Name the 1980 Al Pacino film that sees him playing a detective that goes undercover in the S&M subculture of New York City.
Concrete Jungle?
Incorrect. Good guess, though. Matt.
I mean, okay. One more time.
Name the 1980 Al Pacino film that sees him play a detective that goes undercover in the S&M subculture of New York.
Right. I mean, my knee-jerk guess would be Serpico, but let me get the Rescue Me Ryan.
Rescue Me Ryan on the last question. Something you do in a car.
Drive through. I mean, yeah. I don't know, right? What
he
is
goes
it?
right to drive through. I love it.
I mean, I can think of other things, but you know.
We were looking for cruising.
Oh, see, that's a good one.
It's a great movie, Jawheads. If you have not seen Cruising, do check that one out. So Elliott does win this one 3-2. Congratulations, Elliott. If it came down to a tie, a jawbreaker, better actor, Willem Dafoe or Al Pacino, Elliott?
Ooh, that's not right. That's not right. You know what? I'm going to give it to Willem Dafoe.
Incorrect. It's Al Pacino.
Al Pacino plays himself in every movie now. At least Willem Dafoe changes things up.
What if it was Al, Pacino playing Dafoe?
The real jawbreaker was this: age of Tim Allen, closest to. Matt, you got a guess on Tool Time Tim?
I mean, yeah. Let's see. All right. So he was popular in the mid 90s doing his home improvement show, where I would have guessed his age would have been late 30s to early 40s. And that was like 25 years ago. So I'm going to say he's like 65 years old.
Lock him in at 65. Elliott, you got a guess?
The number 62 popped into my head.
We would have gave that one to Matt. 68.
Oh,
Tim Allen, 68. He's getting up there.
Yeah. Oh, virtual handshake.
Yeah.
Fist bump there.
Well done, Elliott. You finally got a win under your belt on trivia. He comes back. It's been 10 years, but Elliott finally gets a win. I love it.
Finally.
Well earned, sir. And we won't let another 10 years go by before we have you back on the show, man.
You better not. You better not.
I won't.
No. First and foremost, we got to thank Elliott for coming on. Thanks, buddy. It's been a blast.
I appreciate it. I have gotten several new titles for series and comic books to write from you guys. Thank you so much for that. FYI, I'm also writing a superhero romance called Plutonic Relationships.
There you go.
I love it.
Do you have a future as a steamboat skipper with good puns like that, you know?
Yeah, there we go.
We also got to thank our producer, our editor, Fill Me In, Phil.
Oh, thank you, guys. I'm always happy to be here. And I'd like to take my time now to plug feedback at cinemajaw.com or our Twitter, Instagram, wherever you want to reach out to us. You can write your hate mail towards Matt K for all of the horrible things that he said about the Jungle Cruise ride. It's easily the greatest ride, the shining star of everything that Disney theme parks have to offer.
And let me say this, because I want a good time to plug our Instagram. We're actually off next week because I'm going to Disney. I'm going to ride the Jungle Cruise. I'm really going for Galaxy's.
I bet you the line is going to be around the block because of this movie.
Yes, but I'm really going for Galaxy's Edge. I'll post a lot of photos from there, but I'm gonna ride the Jungle Cruise.
And Phil, just for the record, just so the jawheads know, I love the Jungle Cruise. I'm just saying it's cheesy. It's not like one of the
Matt,
state of
you're
the
digging
art
yourself a bigger hole. I see.
Right,
I see Phil's luck.
We could talk more about this another time.
We got to thank the sponsors, Matt.
Yes, thanks to Overcast and to the Chicago Podcast Co-op who help us get great sponsors like that.
If you want to support Cinemajaw, the easiest way to do so is by leaving us a review wherever you're listening to this podcast.
And while you're there writing the review, please click subscribe. One extra little click helps us out a lot.
Until next week, I'm Rye the Movie Guy.
I'm Matt Kay.
And keep on jawing about the movies.